Hello, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Anthony DeSimone with his newest edition of Penguins Pointers. This is number 17, and boy, do we have a lot of stuff to cover in a little bit of time, so let's get on moving and cover some topics here. As we all know, the sad news that came out, and if you haven't heard about it, then you're not a real Penguin fan, but Malkin is, yes, out 6 to 8 weeks, and I put season after it because it's going to be for the rest of the season. I don't see him coming back. Even if the Penguins make a long run in the playoffs, I don't think Malkin will be back anytime soon for the Penguins. It's a tough one for the Penguins to swallow, a real tough pill for the Penguins to take, but, when you play in a game where the refs decide that they're not going to call interference calls and roughing calls when you're playing Columbus, then stuff like this happens. And it's unfortunate that it had to happen to Malkin and a Penguin player, but I ultimately think that this is the result of referees not being hard enough on players when it comes to player safety and unnecessary roughness and hits of that matter. But I digress. Malkin's out 6 to 8 weeks. The Penguins will have to make do without. I felt like in the last couple games, in the last game without him against New York, the Penguins did very well and used the three guys below, which we will get to in just a second. Used the skill set that those three players possess, and were able to use it and kind of mask up the fact that we didn't have Malkin in the lineup, and they were able to walk out of there with a 5-3 victory over the Rangers. But it's real tough. It's going to be real tough for them. They're going to have to make some line changes. I don't know if I think Bonino will be able to hold that second line position. And I feel as if the Penguins, if they cannot find someone to replace Malkin on that second line as the centerman, that second line is going to struggle because you have two great wingers on that second line in Hagelin and Kessel. But if they don't have a strong centerman, that line's just not going to work. They can have speed all day, but it was the third and fourth lines that were stealing the show in the Rangers game a couple days ago. So they're going to hopefully have to figure out who's going to be that second line guy. And maybe it's just Bonino needs some time with that second line to build a little bit of chemistry real quick before the playoffs if the Penguins can stay alive. But they need to figure it out, and they need to figure it out quick. So that's a tough one. I hate to see Malkin go down. He was having a really good season as well. But hey, these things happen. This is the way hockey works. You have to deal with the injuries that you're dealt and the cards you're given. And this is going to be a real test for Sullivan to see if he can play with, make the team win without Malkin in the lineup. But let's jump down. 2-year contract extensions announced for the gentlemen below: Scott Wilson, Brian Rust, Tom Kuhnhackl. I think these are three great players and additions to the Penguins roster. Each one of them, I felt, has taken their lumps, their bumps, their bruises, and have put pucks in the net and have helped put pucks in the net, as you can see by their goals and assists this season. I feel these three gentlemen did deserve the contracts that they got. Scott Wilson, very tough player. Brian Rust and his speed is just... Brian Rust is this little bullet that just runs around the ice and gets in there and causes havoc for people. And Scott Wilson is really good at that, but Scott Wilson is also very good at stick handling. It's almost like watching a miniature Crosby out on the ice when you see Scott Wilson. You see him do some of the similar things that Crosby does, and I think if he stays and does well with the Penguins, we might see a little bit of a better development out of him. So it's glad to see those two. Tom Kuhnhackl, same thing, brings that same effort in the third and fourth lines that I was saying at the beginning of this podcast series, at the beginning of this season, the Penguins needed. Stop trying to roll with three powerful lines and start running with four lines that are all decent. And I think these three players are what is going to make this opportunity seizable for the Penguins. Now that you have the effort from your third and fourth lines with these players, and they put out pretty darn good efforts when they go out on the ice. They might not score all the time like you expect from your top two lines, but those third and fourth lines really do put some back pressure and some good forecheck up against their opponents. So That's really nice to see, and that kind of play wears teams down, so when we get into the second and third periods, those teams are a little bit slower, and those first and second lines can capitalize on them if they catch those guys at the end of a shift. So, in short, real great to see those three guys. They earned it. They worked hard for it. They took their bumps. They took their bruises. They earned these contracts. So real nice to see those three guys get their extensions. And I believe they're all one-way contracts, which means they won't be going back down to Wilkes-Barre. They will be staying in Pittsburgh for those 2 years, barring a trade of some sort. But next point, Fleury passes that 350 win column. He is in good company. Goaltenders such as Chris Osgood, Martin Brodeur, and Henrik Lundqvist are the only three goaltenders that have gotten to 350 wins faster than Marc-Andre Fleury, and that is in some good company right there. That is a testament to just how great of a goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury is. The Penguins may not always have the best season on the ice overall, but every year Fleury puts up great numbers, and I think that's something that any Penguin fan will agree with me, that Fleury is by far one of the best players that the Penguins have had in quite a long time. So, good to see him get 350 wins. Hopefully he continues to go. He already got 351 against the Rangers, so it's good to see that. That's good for his confidence. I thought it was funny after the Columbus game where he got 350. He didn't even know, and he didn't realize it until they were post-game interviewing him. And you got to see that little smile on his face because you knew it meant a lot to him to see that people noticed that he is a very, very good goaltender and that he wins a lot of games. So good for Marc-Andre Fleury. Last season, he had a really fantastic season. He carried the Penguins through their struggles in March and April. This season, he's held the fort down when he's needed to. And he's put up great numbers once again. So good for Fleury. Hopefully he continues to go because we've got a tough next 5-game schedule left and the rest of the season as well. But speaking of which, that's who's left of that 9-game stretch of Metropolitan opponents. We've gotten through 4 of them. The Penguins now have 5 to go. The Islanders are tonight. We'll talk more about that in a few moments. The Hurricanes will be on the 17th at home. The Flyers in Philadelphia on the 19th. That's Saturday. The Penguins come back home Saturday for a game against the Capitals at home, and then the Penguins will be off until Thursday next week when they face off against the Devils at home. 4 of those games are home. Philadelphia is the only road game. Perfect opportunity for the Penguins to rack up some points at home. I mean, it'd be nice if they could win all 5, but if I had to pick, I would rather drop the game to the Capitals, because let's be honest, and we'll look at that in the standings in just a minute, no one is catching the Capitals. So at this point, don't put your big players in there. Don't risk an injury. Let the Capitals have their win and go from there, because you want to beat the other 4, because the other 4 are all chasing the Penguins. The Islanders aren't, but the other 3 are. We're trying to catch the Islanders, so the Penguins want to beat the Islanders. The Hurricanes are behind the Penguins, so the Penguins want to beat them and keep them in the wild card section. The Flyers, we have 3 meetings against them left. That's the first of the 3. It would be good to get a good start off against the Flyers and steal 2 points from them. And the Devils, the same thing. The Devils are clinging on to a hope that they can make the playoffs, and I think if the Penguins go and beat them next week, that's pretty much going to bury it, because they'll put even more distance between them and the Devils. So if I had to pick one of these 4 or 5 games to drop, I would pick the Washington Capitals game and wouldn't be upset if the Penguins lose that game. You know, it's tough because you want to beat the top dog in the NHL, but at the same time, the Penguins have to realize their stake in the playoffs and play smart and just understand there's no merit to beating the Capitals. Sure, you take the 2 points, but at the same time, if you get beat up and we lose another player like Malkin, for example, if Crosby goes down, you got 2 points for what? Now you're missing your 2 star players. I think if the Penguins can get the other 4 teams and win, those 8 points will be more than enough to propel them and give them some distance between those teams fighting to get into those last 2 wild card spots. So But speaking of all that, let's make some sense of all the standings here. I'll jump over for you and you can take a look at everything. Capitals, as you can see, at the top of the board. Rangers behind them with 85 points. Not going to catch them at all. Islanders have closed the gap with the Rangers. It's now a 1-point lead for the Rangers. And the Islanders have 2 more games to play than the Rangers do, so they technically have a better chance of taking second place at the current pace they're going. Jumping down to the Atlantic real quick, this one has gotten a little wild. The Bruins now see themselves in first place in the Atlantic. They were in the wild card spot a few weeks ago. Now have gotten onto a winning streak. The Bruins have really gotten hot in the month of March and the end of February and have propelled themselves to first place in the Atlantic. Tampa Bay Lightning and Panthers are right behind them. But keep in mind, the Panthers are still sitting at the 80-point mark. After that 12-game winning streak, they have struggled to win games. So the fact that they're only 1 point behind is a little upsetting if you're a Panthers fan, because they should be a lot further ahead considering the 12-game winning streak they had. But nonetheless, still holding tight in the Atlantic Division, 1 point separating 3 teams. And then jump down to the wild card setting. The Penguins have 80 points, which puts them 1 point ahead of the Red Wings, who have 79. And then we jump over to in the hunt, the Flyers. There they are, 76 points, but they have 2 games in hand on the Red Wings and 1 on the Penguins that they haven't played yet. So they still have a chance to rack up more points in their schedule. The Hurricanes, 69 games with 74 points. The Devils and Senators both have played 70 and have 73 and 72 points. And the Canadiens sitting back there with 70 points. I think at this point, I think the Canadiens are going to be done. I don't see a push. I don't see the effort. So you can probably knock them out at the in the hunt section, but I keep them in because mathematically they're still able to make the playoffs. But I don't see the Canadiens pulling it together in this last couple weeks of hockey. Senators, same deal. I think if they get a surge, it's going to be too little too late, and they find themselves out short. But the problem is you have the Flyers, who have gotten hot recently, and if any of those teams in the hunt have a chance of stealing a playoff spot, I would say it would probably be the Flyers. The Hurricanes have a decent shot at it, but I think the Flyers, if anybody, will take a playoff spot if they have the opportunity, but they're playing catch-up. And as long as the Penguins and Red Wings continue to get points, the Flyers will be stuck playing catch-up for the rest of the season. And I don't know about you, but I like to see the Red Wings and Penguins make it just because of the playoff streaks that they have. The Penguins, I think, are going for 10 now, and the Red Wings are in the 20-plus years in a row making the playoffs. And it would just be so sad to see the Red Wings miss the playoffs after having such a long streak of success and making it to the playoffs. And besides, nobody in Pittsburgh likes the Flyers, so let's just keep them out of there, because we know if we have to play them in the playoffs, that's going to be one nasty hockey series. So let's just, for the best interest, let's leave the Flyers out of the playoffs this season. But that's basically it for the standings here. I'm sure they're going to change tonight. There's a bunch of hockey games going on. Speaking of which, the Penguins do have a game tonight. New York comes to town, but this time it's the Islanders. We faced off against them last Tuesday night actually, and fell to them in New York 2-1. I felt the Penguins had a really good game. It's just they could not get that second goal. And, you know, when you have 2 good goaltenders in net, that's going to happen. And they had an opportunity with Grice coming in and a power play opportunity, but the Penguins just did not have luck on their side. So this one is a must-win. The Penguins have to win this game, because if they have any shot of catching the Rangers or Islanders, then they have to keep beating those teams. And I believe there's 1 game left against the Rangers, and I think in April the Penguins will play the Islanders again, but it will be on the road. So this is a must-win. This is, if the Penguins want to catch 3rd place in the Metropolitan, they got to win this game. So there are their standings, 38-21-8, 84 points, puts them 3rd in the Metro. The game is at 7 o'clock tonight. My tips to win, Fleury's got to be stellar again like he was last game. Only giving up 2 goals. They need that kind of performance from him again. The little guys, we talked about them. Kuhnhackl, Wilson, Rust. Those guys got to keep performing on the third and fourth lines and grinding it out with the Islanders and wearing those players down so that when we get to the second and third periods, the first and second liners can go out there and have a strong forecheck, which is the third point, and get a couple goals on net. But that's the third point, the forecheck. We did it. The Penguins did it well in New York. They need to do it well again at home against the Islanders. Strong forecheck. Get in there, break up their plays before they can get into center ice, and keep the pressure and keep the puck down in their end. Pressure the Islanders. The Penguins did it well against the Rangers. It resulted in a 5-goal performance. And I think if the Penguins are able to do that again with Fleury's strong goaltending, they can do it because they won't have to worry about defending him as much if he's having a strong night. I think that'll result in a couple goals for the Penguins. And, of course, if they can get a couple power plays against the Islanders, as this isn't going to be exactly a pretty game, as the Penguins and Islanders have this subtle bitterness with each other. I wouldn't call it a rivalry because, the Penguins have Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, and Washington, Pittsburgh. Those are more of our rivals per se. But there's a subtle bit of anger and hate between these two teams when they play one another, and it's not like a traditional hockey game. When you go play Buffalo, you just go play Buffalo. You play the Islanders. The players see that game, and they bring a little extra with them that night. So this will be a fun game to watch. Like I said, 7:00 tonight. Hopefully the Penguins get out of there with a win at home. I think it's a must-win in my opinion. If not, then you can almost guarantee the Penguins will not steal a Metropolitan spot. They will be a wild card team if the Penguins cannot win tonight. And that's a lot to say with a lot of hockey left. There's still 12 games left approximately for each team. But this is one of those that if you can't beat them now, you're not going to beat them when we play them again. So, but that's basically it. I'm done. You won't hear from me until next Saturday, I believe. Good old Danny will be coming back on for another blog. So you'll be able to see Dan coming back on and hanging out with us. So stay tuned for that one. As for this one, like I said, I'm done. I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for listening in. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done either one of them yet. And I will catch you guys next time. Go Pens.